Hi, first grade. Today we are going to start a new fluency passage. So we were so impressed and proud of what a great job you did with your last fluency passage from Waiting for the Biblioboro. So we have a new one to start today, and we will follow the same routine that we did with the previous passage. So you can listen to me reading the passage on the seesaw activity, but I would ask that you practice it each day from your workbook, and I'll explain that once we get to it, and then I'll let you know when it's time to record this passage. And remember, these can be a little bit more challenging of texts, and that's why we spend so many days practicing them, so that by the end you feel, fairly comfortable. You have learned the words that maybe you didn't know to start with, and you can really focus and practice on being a fluent reader. So, speaking of being a fluent reader, let's quickly review the things that fluent readers do. So, they read without stumbling. That was one of the first things we talked about. So, to read without making mistakes, without making a lot of mistakes. Everybody makes a mistake here and there, but to, for the most part, read pretty smoothly without making mistakes. Then we talked about good fluent readers read with appropriate phrasing and pausing. That means when you see a period, you stop, you take a little break before starting the next thought. If you see a comma, you take a pause when you're reading. When we see a question mark, our voice goes up a little bit when we're reading to show that it's a question. We also talked about reading with appropriate expression. You don't want to read like this with no emotion, but you also don't want to be so exaggerated and over the top either. So that finding that, just right in the middle where you're reading with enough expression and it goes with what you're reading. If it's something that's exciting, you are more excited. If it's maybe a sad story, you're reading with, a little less expression, emotion. We also talked about reading at the appropriate rate or pace. So, not reading too fast, not reading too slow, but finding that just right in the middle, just like Goldilocks, that just right. And then, ultimately, or in the end, the goal for reading fluently is so that when you do read, you can be heard and understood. And that's really what we're working towards. So, doing all of these things on the list and practicing them like we are and like we will help you to really be able to be heard and understood when you are reading something. All right, before we actually get to the fluency passage, it is based on a book called Museum ABC, and we haven't read this book yet, so I wanted to take a moment and share this text with you, and then I'll share the fluency passage. So this is an alphabet book, and you'll see if you see what I mean by alphabet book, when I say alphabet book, that is based on artwork from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So it's artwork that has come from a museum that has been put into this book about the alphabet. So take a look, enjoy, really study the pictures in this book and see what you think. All right, Museum ABC. A is for apple. B is for boat. C is for cat. D is for dance. E is for egg. F is for feet. G is for game. H is for hair. I is for insect. J is for jewelry. K is for kiss. L is for light. M is for monster. N is for nose. O is for ox. P is for peacock. Q is for queen. R is for rose. S is for star. T is for tree. U is for umbrella. V is for vegetable. W is for window. X is for X. Y is for yellow. Z is for zigzag. All right, and that was Museum ABC. All right, so one more thing before we look at the fluency passages. Throughout the year and throughout our reading lessons, there will be times where we will study different pieces of artwork. You may remember looking at the piece of artwork at the end of Module 0 when we read the rainbow fish. So I wanted to just share 3 different terms with you today, just so you hear them, and we'll talk more about them. But I just wanted to share 3 different art terms that you may hear coming up in some of our lessons when we study and talk about art. So the first one is by looking at the page H, and you see all of the pictures that we see on this page of the book. Do you notice anything about what they have in common? Right, if you are thinking that they are all people, you would be correct. And these are what are called the type of artwork that is called a portrait. And you probably have heard that word before. We created a self-portrait on the first day of school. You created a portrait of Tomas on one of the activities. So a portrait is a work of art that is of someone, of a person. Okay, so keep that one in mind, portrait. Okay, the next one is on this page. So this is the V is for vegetable page, but the type of artwork that all of these pictures would fall under is something called still life, still life, still life artwork. And a still life painting or still life artwork is when the artist paints or creates a picture of just everyday objects that are on display. So a bowl of fruit on a table, these vegetables just sitting. Sometimes it could be like a vase of flowers sitting on the table. So it's these everyday items or objects that are put on display and then the artist paints. That's called a still life. All right, and then last but not least, you see that for the Y is for yellow page. I've left, you can see 2 of the pictures, but 2 of them I've left out of the frame because I just want you to focus on these 2 paintings here. Do you notice anything about both of these pictures? Yeah, we see the sky and the earth and there's nature, and this is what's called a landscape. Okay, a landscape. And a landscape is a natural scene, so a scene of nature that either the artist sees or it's how the artist imagines it. So it's a scene of nature. That's again called a landscape. All right, so we've learned portrait, still life, and landscape. All right, now let's jump to our fluency passage. All right, so the fluency passage, this next one can be found on the workbook page, handout 13A, fluency homework / evaluation is what it says, but you want to look for homework, or I'm sorry, handout 13A. I would recommend, again, putting a Post-it note or a bookmarker. There were Post-it notes in your supply box. If you needed one, you could just stick one there to hold your place so you can quickly find the page each day when you want to practice. But whatever works best for you. So I'm going to go ahead and read through it. And if you want to follow along with me, this is a poem based on the book that we just read, the text that we just read, Museum ABC. So this says, Museum ABC. A is for apple. I see red, green, gold. B is for boat. I see lines so bold. C is for cat. I see fuzzy friends. D is for dance. I see leaps and bends. E is for egg. I see ovals round. F is for feet. I see toes on the ground. All right, excellent. So remember, you can come to the seesaw activity and continue coming back to it to hear me reading this text as you're practicing, and then I will send you a new activity when it is time for you to record this yourself. All right, so keep up the amazing work, first grade. You are doing a great job. Talk to you soon.